Sean Diddy Combs files a $50 million defamation lawsuit against an accuser over alleged celeb sex tapes. According to court documents obtained by E! News, the suit alleges that during a September 27th appearance on News Nation, the accuser claimed they possessed videos of Mr. Combs involved in the sexual assault of celebrities and minors. In addition to the accuser, Combs is suing their attorney, Ariel Mitchell, and Nexstar Media Group, which is the parent company of News Nation, for propagating the claims. Referring to the allegedly incriminating videos the accuser claimed to have in their possession, the lawsuit, filed in the Southern District of New York January 22nd, alleges that all parties involved participated in a willful scheme to fabricate and broadcast outrageous lies concerning Mr. Combs and then to leverage those falsehoods to gain social media fame, enrich themselves, and strip Mr. Combs of his reputation, livelihood, and right to a fair trial. E! News has reached out to the accuser, Mitchell, and News Nation for comment, but has not heard back. And along with the alleged fabrication of lies, the suit refers to Mitchell and the accuser as social media protagonists, whom the suit claims had spent months fueling a media frenzy and vying to outdo each other in a shameless competition to draw attention to themselves with no regard for the truth. The lawsuit also lays out the profound reputational and economic injury and prejudice that the accuser's alleged misinformation has caused Combs, who is currently in Brooklyn Metropolitan Detention Center awaiting a May 5th trial for sex trafficking, racketeering, and transportation to engage in prostitution charges. Combs has pleaded not guilty to all charges. As for where the accuser allegedly got the tapes, the suit states that the accuser claimed they received the videos directly from Combs' late ex, Kim Porter, who died from lobar pneumonia in 2018. But Combs refutes these claims as, according to the lawsuit, the accuser has never met Mr. Combs and has never had any relationship with anyone in Mr. Combs' family. In addition to the lawsuit, Combs' attorney Erica Wolf tells E! News in a January 23rd statement, these defendants have willfully fabricated and disseminated outrageous lies with reckless disregard for the truth. Their falsehoods have poisoned public perception and contaminated the jury pool. This complaint should serve as a warning that such intentional falsehoods, which undermine Mr. Combs' right to a fair trial, will no longer be tolerated.
Diddy just dropped a $50 million defamation lawsuit against accuser Courtney Burgess and his lawyer, Ariel Mitchell, claiming that they lied about the existence of sex tapes involving Diddy and minors. Diddy has decided to come after everyone who has spoken out against him, and allegedly, he's going to sue every victim.
And those statements include descriptions of what the witness says he saw on those tapes. So I asked him about that, and he answered what he could, given the limitations imposed on him after testifying before the grand jury. Out of those 8 videos, 8 celebrities, 6 men and 2 women, how many of those 8 celebrities were close to being underage or potentially underage?
2 males.
2 males. And of those 8 celebrities, how many of them were intoxicated or under the influence of drugs?
This is going to be all speculation. I just want to preface it by he wouldn't know if they were. Right.
Sure.
Appear to
Let me
be,
rephrase
right,
it.
Based on, yes.
Understand. Out of the 8 celebrities who were recorded having intimate relations with Sean Combs, how many of them appeared to be either inebriated or intoxicated or under the influence of drugs?
All of them. All of them.
Out of those 8, how many appear to be potentially victimized? How many might have been victimizing?
I think all, to be honest, all.
Were victims
They
or
victims.
were perpetrating?
Victims.
They were all 8 were victimized,
Yeah,
meaning
victim.
this was happening to them and they were inebriated.
Right. Not knowing, I guess, how much proof it was in it, what they was doing.
You made a lot of allegations, right? Are you expected to eventually turn those things over, or?
Well, that's what we're going to head over to do now. So we have a hearing now to determine what we're going to do in terms of what documents we'll have to turn over and what documents we do not have.
So why were you in court tonight?
Just to give testimony to the grand jury. He was subpoenaed by the court, so as we all know, if you don't answer a subpoena, the marshals will come to your house as they came to his house and they will bring you here. So that's why we're here today.
I know you can't mention celebrities per se. You did mention some in the interview. So just to clarify, you can back that up with actual factual footage.
We have, it's things that we have, but we got to go to the other courthouse. So I don't know if that's any more questions, but we kind of got another hearing to go.
Are you nervous or do you feel cool?
Nah, I ain't never nervous. Only thing that's fair to me is God.
I know you did mention what was on the flash drive before. Would you be able to kind of go over that now, or is that something that you can't discuss?
No, we're trying to just go to discuss that now, what we will be able to talk to in terms of what was available and what was on those flash drives.
Okay.
But it was the book,
So it is Kim Porter's book, but not necessarily some of the stuff with the celebs that were mentioned besides.
It's hers. Nobody touched it.
Oh, so it is her official book.
Yes. Nobody.
And no one touched it.
Nobody altered it. Nothing.
So it's not the copy that the gentleman said that he was selling before. No.
No.
it's two different copies. That one was edited, and we have the original copy.
Back in November 2024, CEO of Alter Ego Records, Courtney Burgess, claimed that he had access to 11 flash drives that allegedly contained 8 freak-off tapes. Courtney alleged that Kim Porter had given him these tapes along with an electronic copy of her memoir for safekeeping. These tapes allegedly show Sean Diddy Combs engaged in sexual activity with minors and 2 A-list celebrities. Allegedly, these tapes were handed to the FBI after Courtney was subpoenaed to appear in front of a grand jury.
Apparently, the grand jury felt the same way that I felt, because we've learned that Courtney Burgess has been summoned back to testify again next week. So it's a good time to bring in Ariel Mitchell, Courtney Burgess's attorney. You saw her sitting beside Courtney on the air. Hey, it's good to see you again, Ariel. Boy, this is becoming a frequent visit that you and I are having. So talk to me a little bit about Diddy's team's reaction, because man, did they ever... They went to town in those legal filings, and I could see, like, you and me talking throughout the filings. They didn't like it.
They were pretty pissed off, to say the least, very upset. And I would assume you'd be upset when you know the truth is coming out and the truth is continuing to come out, and somebody like Mr. Burgess is delivering that truth. Mr. Burgess actually told me that he believed that the purpose of that gag order letter that was written by Mark Agnifilo on November 3rd was because Diddy knew that it was Courtney who was bringing this information and said, well, he finally got me where he wants me. So we truly believe that not only Mark Agnifilo, but also Sean Combs is very much so aware that the things that Courtney has talked about and said he witnessed, and the things that were on the flash drives, including the book, as well as the other videos, were definitely of real events and things that had happened. And that is the last thing that Mr. Combs would like out about him, is these factual allegations of things that he has done and that he knows he's done.
I should make note that the book is purported to be Kim Porter's manuscript turned into a book that apparently is on these flash drives. So big question, your client, Courtney Burgess, has been asked to come back on November 12th before the grand jury again. I know he told us it was not a good experience the first time. He felt like they were making him into a criminal. He said he just wanted to help the victims. Why does he have to go back?
Well, we have to finalize the testimony. So I do believe we may be able to waive our appearance in that, where Mr. Burgess might not actually physically have to come back, but there was a rider attached to the subpoena that requested certain documents and videos and evidence that Mr. Burgess had talked about in his interviews prior to the grand jury subpoena, and part of what he was supposed to bring. So they just need to bring that to completion, and that's the purpose for us possibly having to testify further.
Makes sense. So mark your calendar and come on back on the program and let us know what happens next. Ariel Mitchell, I always love having you on. Thank you for this. Appreciate it.
Diddy's legal team, led by attorneys Mark Agnifilo and Tiny Julos, has filed for a gag order against Courtney Burgess and other victims who might be coming forward. In their letter to Judge Arun Subban, Combs' attorneys requested that the court prohibit potential witnesses and their attorneys from revealing anything related to Diddy. Following the gag order, Courtney was called back into court to testify again.
Here is the other thing with Mr. Burgess. He apparently says he owns the rights to a book that was reportedly based on the alleged memoir of Kim Porter. In fact, according to TMZ, Burgess' phone was seized by the feds, and on it was a copy of a flash drive with material that was used in this book. Here's the problem. Christian and Quincy Combs, these are the sons of Diddy and Kim Porter. Quincy's actually adopted by Diddy. But they are reportedly fighting back, and they have sent Burgess a cease and desist letter to prevent the further sale of this book. They argue this is just an attempt to capitalize on Porter's fame and that they own the rights to her IP, her intellectual property, like her diary entries, her potential manuscript. As her heirs, they own it. And they also want an accounting of current sales of the book. To be clear, though, they aren't acknowledging that there is, in fact, a long-lost memoir from their mother. In fact, they've actually denied that before when there was a similar book, a derivative work, we'll talk about that, published by this guy named Chris Todd on Amazon. They were adamantly fighting against that. They said that their mother wouldn't write this. But what they're basically saying is if something should exist, they own it.
Diddy's sons, Christian and Quincy Combs, have also filed a cease and desist order against Courtney Burgess, demanding ownership of their mother's memoir so they can profit from it. These individuals seemingly don't care about what their mother wanted to share in her memoir and are only interested in the money that comes from book sales. Allegedly, this memoir is currently in FBI custody, along with the 8 freak-off tapes.
In their letter, they write, quote, "Having reviewed these videos, it is now abundantly clear that they confirm Mr. Combs' innocence and that their full exculpatory value cannot be investigated and used unless they are electronically produced. The 9 videos at issue are the so-called freak-off tapes with victim 1 that the government has repeatedly referenced, causing wild speculation in the media. Contrary to what the government has led this court and the public to believe, the so-called freak-offs were private sexual activity between fully consenting adults in a long-term relationship. Like many Americans in the privacy of their own bedrooms, they sometimes filmed their sexual activity. These videos unambiguously show that the person alleged in the indictment to be victim 1 not only consented, but thoroughly enjoyed herself." And we believe, by the way, victim 1 to be Cassandra Ventura. This is Diddy's ex, who first filed that initial sexual assault lawsuit against Combs back in 2023. She was in that infamous surveillance footage that was published by CNN of an incident that happened in a hotel hallway where Combs is beating Ventura just while wearing a towel. It's a very disturbing video. He argues the videos don't show any orgies or celebrities or violence or coercion or threats or manipulation or evidence of anyone being under the influence of drugs, that this is not sex trafficking. Quote, "The premise that freak-offs are inherently dangerous shows that the government seeks to police non-conforming sexual activity and that it assumes, despite all evidence to the contrary, that a woman's willing participation must have been coerced." That's interesting because that's something we've long suspected, that the defense is not going to shy away from the term freak-offs. They might accept, yeah, Combs called these freak-offs, but this was entirely consensual. It was all on the up and up. It might be different to you and me, but there's nothing illegal going on here.
If they're really If the government is the government in the Southern District of New York, I can't imagine this is what they're hanging their hat on if it's what the defense describes. It's like one of those things that when you have a weakness in a case, the government has to decide how they're going to use that. My guess is they're going to use it to show that there were sex workers, that these sex workers were paid. I would imagine that they have the sex workers that are in the video to come in and describe what was going on or what happened before they went on tape. Whether or not they had drugs or alcohol or anything else, whether or not Cassie had drugs or alcohol, whether or not there was a discussion between Sean Combs and Cassie before the tape started. So
Right.
I think that the tape is going to be one portion of it, but the testimony of either the sex workers that were in the video and or Cassie is going to kind of tie it together. That's my guess.
Interestingly, Diddy's legal team has already admitted to the existence of these freak-off tapes in a previous lawsuit but is now only disputing the involvement of minors. According to Diddy's lawyers, everything that happened during his parties was consensual and drug-free. They claimed that the alleged victims actually enjoyed themselves during the freak-off parties.
Is your client fearful if Diddy does get out?
As you know, I represent other clients, actual victims who have sued Mr. Combs, Diddy, in civil court, and all of them are very apprehensive about their safety if he were to be granted bond. I am confident in the court I am sure that the court will remain with their previous decision of no bond. I feel like the judge only gave this, let me think about it, just to not make it as obvious. But I have all the confidence in the world and the federal court and the state of New York that they will remain keeping Diddy under no bond, and that all of the victims in this case will be able to proceed sooner rather than later.
Yeah, and you mentioned, I mean, you don't just represent this man, you represent other alleged victims too and people involved. Have there been any threats made against any of your clients?
There have been threats from people on the internet, but not from, at least what we don't know, from Diddy to be directly. So my clients have, Mr. Burgess has received several death threats. My client, Mrs. Parham, has been receiving threats, but we don't know if they're just regular people from the internet or if they're actually people who were sent by Diddy.
Do you have any idea where the threats are coming from? I mean, have you done any investigation?
Well, most of the investigation leads us to a lot of burner accounts on Instagram, and we're trying to now sift through possibly working with law enforcement to try to get subpoenas to determine the IP addresses of where those threats were emanating.
So, okay, interesting. We know that the cease and desist letter has now come. Has there been any other pressure of any kind that you or your clients have felt to stop talking?
In general, I feel that the gag order, when we talk about that, Mark Agnifilio wrote about me specifically, and also all of the other plaintiffs in the civil lawsuits to try to have all of us gagged. There's pressure every day that it's continuing to talk about this is putting not only our lives in jeopardy, but could be potentially used against us in a gag order.
So it was, I just want to make sure I understand correctly, it was Diddy's sons who actually sent the cease and desist? Is that the way it was worded?
Yes, it was worded as coming from Quincy Brown and Christian Combs. It did mention the daughters, but it did not name them specifically, but it did name the two sons, Kim Porter's sons.
So do you get the sense that from behind bars, Diddy is still directing all of this? Is the one who said send this letter? Do you think he's that involved?
I'm 100% confident it was Diddy who orchestrated this whole farce of a letter. The letter was a waste of my time to read and a waste of the lawyer's time to write. I hope the lawyer who wrote that letter got paid triple, because it was actually a very stupid letter.
Why do you say that? Why do you say stupid?
Well, because they contradicted themselves in their own letter. In one breath, they're asserting that these sons have copyright, they're the copyright owners, and that Courtney is not the proper copyright holder. And then in the same breath is calling Courtney a liar and saying that the work they're saying they're the copyright owner of is a fake. So if both things cannot be true, either it's a fake and it's a work of fiction that Mr. Burgess made up himself, or it's actually the work of your mother, and then you can maybe assert some copyright issues, but even copyright ownership, but there are issues there as well, because Mr. Burgess received the copyright from Kim Porter prior to her death.
Ariel Mitchell, the lawyer representing Courtney Burgess against Diddy, says that she and other victims have received death threats. Gene Deal, Jaguar Wright, and even minors who were allegedly victimized by Diddy have confirmed these threats. Even the district attorney for the Southern District of New York, who is bringing the case against Diddy, has stated that Diddy was calling victims from inside the MDC.
I also was just recently contacted by someone who wanted me to essentially represent them in the sale of one of the Diddy tapes. So, which I declined that because...
Wait a minute, say that again. Say that again, back up. You're saying that there's tapes and they're being shopped?
Yes, there have been people already shopping.
We've heard about the tapes, but
yes.
The shopping thing is...
Yes, there already have been tapes leaking around Hollywood, being shopped around to individuals in Hollywood. But one particular person contacted me to shop a particular video they were in possession of, and to contact the person who was in the video to see if they were interested in purchasing the video before it became public knowledge.
I've heard this before, so like a catch and kill.
Catch and kill, correct.
Wow. Can you, and I guess you can't reveal the person who is on
No,
the
I can't explain who the person was, but Mr.
High profile?
Mr. Combs was in the tape, and this other person is, I would venture to say, more high profile than Mr. Combs.
Really? Really? And you've seen it?
I've seen stills of the video.
Okay.
So
you can verify
that it exists, that it's real, that the other person in the video is very visible. It's no question if it's that person in the video. And I can tell the video was pornographic in nature.
Oh, my. All right. So we know that he videotaped a lot of activities at his home, did he? And it sounds like there was probably a lot of hidden cameras as well. Is that what is being talked about?
Yes. This was actually in his Atlanta home, at a home he had in Atlanta at one point. And it does seem that the person isn't like looking into the video. So it's, to me, doesn't seem like that person knows they're being videotaped. It doesn't seem like they're active participant in the videotaping, like they're being surreptitiously recorded it.
Mm-hmm. All right. I wanted to ask you about the police report we talked about, but when your client came out, obviously the neighbor knew. Did she talk to her family? Did she talk to her friends? Did she have another lawyer? Let's go back to your client.
So at the time, she, as most rape victims are, they feel a lot of shame.
Absolutely.
And they don't want to vocalize what happened to them because then it makes it real. So they kind of internalize it and get over it. Mm-hmm. And due to the high profile nature that it was Mr. Combs who did this, she was afraid for her life. She was concerned that if she was to come forward and say something, that no one would believe her, because we're talking about 2018 when Mr. Combs was still pretty much at the height of his career, still very much so an icon and influential figure. Mm-hmm. So she's just a young girl from Northern California who's gonna believe that he had done something to her like this. So she didn't tell anybody. She did not hire an attorney. All she did was make the police report in the hopes that maybe the police would try to investigate and come up with anything. But she said she kind of felt from the police that they were disregarding what she was saying, even without saying Mr. Combs' name. So she didn't feel any confidence that revealing his name would have done anything.
Sure. I mean, but there's a police report.
Yeah.
I mean, that fact in of itself is a big deal, because when you're talking about going back in time and talking about these allegations from other alleged victims, you know, there's not a lot of police reports, but you guys actually have one. And is that going to be revealed? Are we going to be able to see it?
Yes. As soon as I file my lawsuit in civil court, I will be attaching the criminal complaint that was made. I'll attach the number so everyone can see that this is a real number and can go to the police department there and request their own copy of that police report that was made back in 2018.
In a shocking turn of events, during an interview on News Nation, Ariel Mitchell said that someone close to Diddy had actually reached out to her to try and sell her a tape. This tape allegedly features a specific celebrity and is one of many that are now available for sale on the market. Mitchell has even appeared in a recent documentary discussing Diddy and claimed that she has personally seen stills from Diddy's alleged sex tapes.
Anybody came out defending Diddy.
They let down all their inhibitions. The music is pumping. He said it himself. He got it so hot in there that you got to take your clothes off. He said that himself, bruh.
So, what do you think? Is Diddy just trying to silence his accusers, or is there more to this story than we know? With high-profile names, secret tapes, and ongoing lawsuits, this scandal is far from over. As more details emerge, we'll be here to break it all down. Let me know in the comments, do you think these tapes will ever see the light of day?